What is up, family? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm doing a tutorial on how to mix your beats. Now I know a lot of you don't use Maschine, and that's okay. You don't need a certain program to get these mixing tips. These mixing tips are universal for any program, and you should be able to use your DAW efficiently enough to take these and make it work. If you don't, then you should do more research on your DAW. The DAW is just a blank canvas. You want to know how to work it before you actually try to learn any tips. You want to be able to know the ins and outs. We're going to get right into it. Today I got this beat that I just arranged right before this video, and this is it. Alright, I'm sorry if you can hear the house shaking, it's just part of the structure. But anyways, we're gonna start with the melody. One rule to leave room for your 808s and your kicks is to high pass. Now I know this is a very controversial subject. People say it takes the life out of instruments, which is very true. You want to find the sweet spot where you're not thinning it out. So you find out where you're thinning out the melody. So I'm gonna raise this high pass filter until it starts to thin out, then I'm gonna back it up. So right about 250 it starts to thin out. So I'm gonna drop it to like 180. So that's a good starting point to leave room for your kicks and your 808s. Alright, so for different instruments, you're gonna want to do different things. So not only are you mixing the levels and the transients and all these sort of things about the instruments, you're also mixing the panning of these instruments and the spatial elements of them. So I'm using a free plugin called Wider. It's a quick fix, it's perfect. It's by Infected Mushroom. And also when you widen things, they become louder in perspective, so you want to lower them a little bit. Now with that instrument, I'm gonna want to automate the panning. It's called Yangquin, whatever it's called. It's a free plugin until 31st of this month. So what the automation is doing is it's taking it from far left towards the center, and then on the second one from far right towards the center. Optional, you can add RC20 on it. This isn't really RC20 type melody, but we'll see what we can do. Well, it came out sounding better than I thought. Now you want to go in your mixing tab, double click the group, and you want to see the level that your melody is at. It's usually somewhere between 28 and 20. So right now it's at 26.7. You preferably don't want it peaking past 20. Your drums are going to be sitting pretty high in the mix. You want your drums to be peaking at about 6 dB. I mean, if you want more headroom, you can have your drums peaking from 12 to 8 dB instead, so that when you squash it with a limiter and compressor, it has more room to work with. If you have it at 6 dB or 3 dB like most producers, and you start squashing it with compressors and limiters, it's just gonna make the sound flat. And Spotify and other streaming platforms, they take every song and keep it at a certain level. Making your song louder isn't necessarily gonna make it louder compared to other songs, because they have every song at the same level. So if your song is this loud and their song is this loud, they're gonna bring your song down and they're gonna bring other people's songs up, so it's the same level. But anyways, let's get to the drums. The way I like to start with drums is I start with the kick and the 808 and see how they're meshing together. Now, kick and the 808 should be hitting around like 12 to 8 dB up to maybe like 6. So as you can see, it's 4.4. That's a little too much. You're gonna want to dial that back. I dropped it 2 dB on both of them, and it's hitting at 6.3, which is a good start, but when you bring in the other drums, it's also gonna add to the dB, so you might want to give it more room, like 8. So I'm gonna drop in another 2 dB. Now, it's important to get the 808 to cut through the mix. So you can either add a saturator or distortion. This is it without distortion. It's sitting back in the mix, it's a lot farther. But you want to bring those transients out, the higher, the top of it. So right about there, it's gonna cut through the mix of any iPhone that you listen to, or Apple headphones, you know, just terrible headphones. What I like to add in after that is the clap. Alright, so that's sounding good. All the extras are coming together. Now it's just the hi-hats. All those levels are sounding good. Now the last thing to do is to check the group level. Make sure that it's not peaking past 6 dB. Alright, so it's sitting at 7 dB, that's not bad. Trick you can do if you want to give yourself more headroom is to click the first one, hold shift, and then click the last sound, and it'll highlight all the sounds for you. And you can bring one of the faders down and it'll bring them all down the same. So when you level it, you don't want to adjust each one individually. You can just bring all the levels down by 1 dB at the same time. Now I can go in and change specific details about the mix. If I want more punch in the kick, I can add an EQ or a compressor. Another mixing tip is to over exaggerate every effect. So like if I'm EQing, I'll add in like 10 dB instead of like 2, so you can really hear what you're doing. Alright, so once you got your drums all settled, what you're gonna want to do is blend it in with the melody. This is the part when you blend them both together, you go to a master channel and you watch that level. You want your master channel level when you're blending them in to be sitting at like about 6 to 8 dB. Okay, so the beat is sitting at about -8, -7.6 dB. Now, get into the mastering. On these trap beats, I like to add a soft clipper. This is another free plugin called Frontier. It's a free soft clipper. I like it. Right here, you can change how much it clips. Just be careful that it doesn't clip your master channel. I love this plugin, it's crazy. So it goes from being this loud, then with the plugin, so that's why you leave all that headroom. So when you squash it, it just gives it a whole different level of dynamics. Then last but not least, I'm gonna add a little Ozone 8. Now what I like to do on the master channel is do a brick wall high pass filter and cut off anything below 30 Hertz. So after you run it through Frontier, the level is going to be really loud, so you want to pay attention right here to the input and dial it back a little bit. I'm going to go with drums and dial back that clap a little bit. That was a mistake. Sometimes those mistakes come out in the master and you want to just change it up. You really just want the kicks and the 808s to be going through the limiter, because that's going to give it that extra punch. You don't want the clap to be coming through too much. The soft clipper is going to do all limiting for you, and then Ozone 8 is just going to keep the peaks where they should be. The final output is about -4 dB. Now, if you're planning on sending it to a mastering engineer or something like that, you want to give it -6 dB. The mastering engineer needs headroom to do their thing to it. But for me, I'm not sending it to a mastering engineer, so I can do whatever I want, make it as loud as I want, as long as it's not clipping. So I'm gonna probably add like a boost around 1.8 kilohertz to let the clap come through. And at that point, it's pretty much finished. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you learned something. See you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow my socials right here.